A strong gesture is critical for all head drawings and can make or break your artwork. Stick around to figure out how to start a head drawing the right way. What's up everyone, I'm Brian Knox and this is the first tutorial in my series, Intro to Head Drawing, where I take you through the process of drawing the human head and teach you how to approach each step in a way that allows you to draw excellent heads from any angle. This series is perfect for both beginning and intermediate artists and will help develop strong skills and habits that you can build on for years to come. In this video, I will teach you the first step in any head drawing, drawing the big shape of the head. Throughout the drawing process, we always work from big shapes to small shapes. The big shape of the head establishes the major gesture and perspective and will serve as the foundation for all of the small shapes that we will add later. This is a critical step for every head drawing. So I'm going to take you through drawing the big shape of the head for a front view, 3/4 view, and profile. Let's get started. Drawing the big shape of the head is the critical first step to a good head drawing. And it's important because it sets the stage for everything that comes after that. If it's not right, it's going to be really difficult to build on top of it and to create a successful head drawing. So we'll talk a little bit about the big shape of the head, but before we do that, I want to talk about the Loomis method. The Loomis method is very popular. You've probably seen a lot of tutorials about it. And he always starts with the ball for the head. And this works in some instances, but not all of them. So I want to show real quick, just kind of, in fact, I have the book here called Drawing the Head and Hands. And so we'll just look at a couple pages out of here and I'll kind of explain how that ball method works and what is good about it and what's also kind of bad about it. Back when I was a student, this is kind of the method that I was taught for head drawing. And well, a combination of this and Riley. But certainly for the big head, it was more of a Loomis type approach. And I had a hard time with it. I had a really hard time. And it took me years actually to figure out exactly why I was having a hard time with it and what to do about that. And yeah, I'll let you know now. So maybe it'll save you some trouble. This is the book, Drawing the Head and Hands. I have a really old copy. It's from like the 50s or something. Somebody wrote all over it. But you can see here on this page, I marked a few pages. This is the one everybody's probably familiar with, right? Where he shows the ball, right? We have the ball and you kind of build off of the ball and you can rotate the ball in different ways. And then that is what we build our thirds off of. And the big shape of the head builds off of the ball. This works well from the front and just off of front view. But as the head rotates, for some people, the cranial mass becomes more of an oval, right, rather than a ball. And so here you can see, you know, he's kind of starting with the ball, chopping the side off. And we'll go over that and how that works from the front view. And then we're going to look at a couple different models that have very different head types. And I'll kind of talk about why the ball works for some and doesn't work for other people and kind of let you know what to watch out for. So on this next page, you can kind of see here, which is interesting. He has the ball, right? And here you have the front view where you have the ball and he kind of chops the sides off of it, similar to the other page. But you notice here, you can see the ball, but it doesn't fit. It's going like way outside the head here and here, right? So that ball shape doesn't actually fit the cranial mass much at all in this drawing, right? And if you had started with that, it would have been really difficult to figure out how to create this shape from it. And it took me, honestly, I didn't even realize this until years later, looking back on this and looking through this book and being like, wow, you know what? His own book kind of, it doesn't disprove the ball method, but it just shows that not everybody's head fits it exactly, right? So we'll have another page here that we can look at real quick. And this one is kind of similar, where you can see here we have a female head. And again, that ball doesn't fit, right? Like it's not, he had to add some extra forehead out here. He had to add some extra back of the head. And what he ended up with is actually more of an oval shape than a ball shape, you know? And you can see that here on the next page as well, more clearly on both of these pages actually. Notice this one has a very clear oval shape here, where he's flattened out the top, front, and back of the head and clearly created more of an oval than a ball. You know, and same thing, you can see that over here, right? We have a flatter top, back, front, and we have an oval that he's building off of. You know, so it just goes to show that you can't always start with a ball, right? Now, some people's heads do have a very round cranial mass shape. And I have, or the school, works with some models that have heads that work that way. And we have some models who have more oval, longer type cranial mass shapes. So we're just going to look at a couple of them right now. And we're going to draw some heads, right? So we'll do a front view, and then just off of front, like just turn it a little bit, and then like a 3/4 view, and then a profile view. And we're going to draw a male head and then a female head for each one, which, we're just drawing the big shape of the head, so it doesn't really matter if they're male or female or not. What we're focused on is the different head types, right? And the different types of cranial mass and how to manipulate those a little bit and how they affect the big shape of the head. So we're going to start with the male model, right? And we're going to start here with a circle, right? Just like the Loomis method, start with a circle. Right, so we're going to start just drawing a nice clean circle, as even as we can. And then we're going to chop the sides off, just like Loomis, right? It's going to just come down this way. And it's going to come down this way. Right, chopping the sides off a little bit. Right, just like he showed with that drawing with the little knife that kind of chops the sides off. And then we get the jaw down here, right? And so we connect the jaw. And we get this kind of shape down here. And he has a very kind of masculine jaw type, so we're going to have, it'll be squared off a little bit maybe. We can just kind of change it up. And just so we know the orientation of the head here, and kind of clean it up, and then just add a center line real quick so we know that we're looking straight at it here. Right, so you can see typical Loomis method. Start with the ball, chop the sides off, add the jaw. Right, but the next model, you'll notice she has from the front a very round cranial mass, almost to the point where you don't need to chop the sides off of the ball. So we can start with our ball shape again. All right, get a nice clean circle on here. And then on her, we can just kind of chop just a little bit of the ball off and kind of bring the sides down this way a little bit more. Angle them inward a tiny bit more. So there's a lot of like nuance to head types, is kind of the idea here. And we just have to be really careful because, I don't know, when you look at the Loomis method sometimes it creates the impression that it's like a one-size-fits-all type solution. And that's just not really the case. Like the heads are a little bit more complex than that, right? And her head's a little bit shorter, right? His head's taller, hers is a more compact shape. So we'll see the jaw just kind of sitting down in here. Right, clean up our construction line. Add the center line. And you can see two very different head types. So the idea with the big shape of the head is we should be able to capture someone's likeness just with the big shape alone, right? We should be able to start having this look like the person we're drawing with just a few lines, right? We haven't drawn much. We drew a circle and added like 1, 2, 3, 4 lines to it, and hopefully this starts looking like that person just a little bit, not a lot. It's just a few lines, but a little bit. So let's try to rotate the head a little bit and see what happens. Right, so next up we'll have male model again, right? So now as the head rotates, keep in mind that the sides that are being chopped off are now rotated a little bit. So we're not seeing such a flat spot on the side of the head, because the flat spot's now kind of on the side a little bit, right? So as the head rotates, now we actually do get a circle for the cranial mass, right? So we're going to have a circular shape, kind of like this. Again, start with a circle, right? And his head it's a pretty tall shape overall. Comes down this way, right? Kind of like that. Now, rhythmically, we want to connect the back of the head down through the jaw, right? So we're going to always look for that good rhythmical connection. And his head type is going to drop down this way. Connect down this direction. Right, and so now we have the center line about here. Right, his chin sitting about here. We're starting, as the head rotates, we're starting to see the back of the jaw. Right, sit back here, although on him it goes fairly straight up and down. Right, and then we have kind of the squared off jaw shape here to kind of match his type a little bit better, and then we're starting to see the ear sitting over here. Clean up our construction lines, and there we go. Right, so again, just trying to capture his head type with a minimal number of lines. Okay, her head, as it begins to rotate, starts to have a little bit more of an oval shape, right? It's not quite a circle, but now we're starting to pick up some of that oval shape to the head, but just a little bit, right? Because her head hasn't turned very far, so it's a minimal amount of this, right? So it's a circle, but just a little bit of an oval to it. Very subtle, right? There's a lot of subtlety involved in these shapes, right? So we get maybe that kind of shape. Not an extreme oval, but a very subtle oval, right? And then the side of her head is going to come down this way. Right, kind of like this. The back part, again, is going to sweep down through the jaw. And we're going to try and connect up the jaw rhythmically down through here. Right, her jaw is sitting, her chin is sitting out here. Kind of get rid of some of these construction lines again. And now the back of her jaw and ear is starting to sit back this way, and her ear and back of the jaw sit at more of an angle, right? Again, something unique to her. His back of the jaw and ear sit more straight up and down, hers angle back farther. Right, kind of like that. And so now we're picking up the ear back here. And we're seeing the center line. Over here. Again, very different head types. And you can see how we're changing up our construction based on the type of head that we're dealing with. You know, so a lot of head drawing has to do with being able to look at a person and determine how their head works, right? What type of head do they have? What's the best way to construct that type of head? And it's not a one-size-fits-all type thing. You know, it's more complex than that. So we'll go ahead and rotate the head a little bit farther again into like a full 3/4 view. Now, his head still has a pretty round cranial mass from this angle, right? It's still pretty round. So I feel like we can still start with a circle. All right, keep it nice, clean, even circle. The front plane down this way. And then again, find that nice rhythmical connection from the back of the head down through the jaw. Right, his chin's going to sit right over here. All right, keep in mind we have the back of the jaw and the ear now sitting back here. Right, connecting up our jaw shape. Down through here, clean up some of our construction lines. Right, add the center line to help kind of orient it in space. So the center line is now way over here. Right, so this head's turning pretty far now. And we're picking up the ear back here. That works pretty well, right? We started with the ball. But now as the head rotates farther with her head, we start picking up a really distinct oval shape for the cranial mass here. Right, so now we're really going to start with more of an oval. A very distinct oval. Right, very clear oval shape. Front of the head dropping down this way. This part rhythmically sweeping through this direction. Right, and her chin sitting right out here at the end. And then we're picking up sort of our construction lines. We're seeing the center line way over here. Right, and now we have the back of the jaw and the ear sitting back this way. And again, with her, it's at more of an extreme angle. That's really tilted back pretty far. So you can see very, very different head types. Okay, so let's try this one more time. We'll rotate the head into a profile view and see how it works there. And you'll see that even with the male model in the profile view, we start picking up a little bit of an oval shape. You know, even his head, as round as that his cranial mass is, it's not totally round in profile, right? It's a very subtle oval maybe. It works a little bit more like this, right? So we're going to start with that kind of shape. And then we're going to drop the front of the head down this way. Right? And then rhythmically connect this part again down through the jaw. You know, and so the shape gets a little bit longer for his head, but not too long. Right? And now in profile, the back of the jaw and the ear sit at about the halfway point. And on him, again, they sit pretty straight up and down. Right? Kind of like that. And then the ear sits around here. Move our construction lines. Pull this back a little bit maybe. It sits back around there. Okay, so this is kind of his profile shape. And maybe he even has a little bit more back of the head than that. It's, pull this out a little bit maybe. But you can see that even with him, as round as his cranial mass is, in profile, it becomes a bit of an oval, right? But now, with the female model, if we look, her cranial mass becomes very long in profile, right? So we start looking in here and finding very long cranial mass shape with a very flat top as well. Right, kind of like that, like an oval that's kind of like flattened out a little bit. You know, and then we'll find the front plane dropping down this way. And then the back part just sweeps down this way. Right, kind of like that. Get rid of our construction lines. And now, again, her ear and jaw tilt back really far. Right, they sit back like this. So there we go. We can see distinctly different head types here. So just keep in mind that it's not always as simple as starting with a ball. And I don't know, you can make that work, right? But it's kind of difficult because you have to know to remove parts of the ball and change parts of the ball. And in my opinion, just identifying the type of head that you're dealing with and how round or oval their cranial mass is, and then incorporating that into your big head shape works a lot better for me. And that's just me personally, right? Like I started out trying to use the Loomis method and always start with a ball, and I couldn't make it work. And then it wasn't until, you know, really experimenting with this stuff and figuring out why it wasn't working that years later I went back and looked at his book and was like, wow, you know what? Some of his drawings don't even fit that ball shape. And yeah, you can see the difference here. You know, we got straight on. Works pretty well. Start with the ball, chop the sides off. Some people, you can even almost use the whole ball, right? And it still works pretty well. It really captures their head type. You know, and then as we move and rotate the head a little bit more, some people will have a very round cranial mass. Some people are going to start turning into a little bit more of an oval, right? As we go a step further, some people will still have very round cranial masses, you know, as we move into that 3/4 view. And some people are going to have a really wider type ovals and longer head shapes when they move into 3/4, you know. And so it's just something really important to keep in mind. And it's part of what makes head drawing so difficult, is understanding the subtlety involved in how to capture these different head types and how to recognize when these different head types are occurring. It takes, you know, years of practice to figure this out. And, you know, in profile, you can kind of see the difference again. We have kind of a longer shape here. This one got a little bit longer, but not in as extreme a way as this one, you know. So that's basically the idea. We can look just real quick before we go. I just want to show a skull just so you can kind of see what we're dealing with here. Here's a skull. Just saw this sitting over there. Just decided to grab it real quick. And you can see from the front, that cranial mass is very round, right? You can see here, it's like a circle with the sides chopped off a little bit. You know, so that's kind of pretty accurate. As we rotate it to the side though, you can see that this shape is very oval-like, right? And that's what we're trying to draw. And that's what that oval represents, is the actual cranial mass, right? Which is, you know, where our brain goes. It's an actual physical component of the head that we're trying to represent with that circle or oval. You know, and then we're attaching this stuff, right? The maxilla, the zygomatic, the mandible, we're attaching all of that to it. And so that's what we're trying to represent. Some people, again, have very round cranial masses. Some people have longer cranial masses. This head probably has a rounder type cranial mass, it seems like. But then if we look at this head, you can see this is a more oval type cranial mass, right? A lot flatter on the top, right? And flatter on the back. You know, so here we can see it's still kind of circular from the front with the sides chopped off a little bit. But as it rotates, it becomes a longer and longer shape to the point where we get a lot of mass back here and it's very flat on the top. This one would be better to represent with an oval in the 3/4 to profile view, whereas this one, it might be better to start with more of a circle in the 3/4 to profile type view. And this one would still have a bit of an oval shape in profile, but 3/4-ish I would say is fairly round on this one. You know, it's a very round shape up here. So that's the idea with the big shape of the head. This is just the first video in the series here. So after this, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next steps. I hope this helps, and I hope it makes sense, and I'll see you guys in the next one. In this video, we covered the big shape of the head and worked through this step in a front, 3/4, and profile view. This stage is critical to a good head drawing because it serves as a foundation for all of the smaller features and aspects of the drawing that we will add later. It's important to master this step, so be sure to spend time focused on this stage every time you do a head drawing. Drawing skulls is a great way to practice this step because it will teach you how the cranial mass looks from different angles and how it relates to the big shape of the head. I hope you learned something new in this tutorial, and I look forward to seeing you in the next part of the series, which will cover the planes of the head. If you enjoyed this tutorial, be sure to give the video a like and subscribe to my channel to stay tuned for more art education content. New videos come out on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and I'll be adding a new video to this Intro to Head Drawing series once per week. I'll be teaching all aspects of head drawing in this series, so I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.